Good morning, good evening, and wherever the sun may find you. My name is Walt, and this morning on Coffee and Concepts, we have Coffee and Bill.
Hey, good morning.
How are you?
Doing good. It's Tuesday morning, not a Monday morning, a Tuesday morning.
Is that a point of contention for you?
Yes, I'm not a fan of Mondays.
Gotcha. And what kind of coffee are you drinking?
What I've got is it's not coffee per se, but I drink Fortos coffee shots.
Dear Lord, that even
Yeah,
looks crazy.
yeah, it's just like 200 milligrams of condensed coffee.
Oh my
So I can
God.
go through those pretty quick.
From zero to hero and nothing flat.
Exactly. I've had 2 of them this morning, so we're good.
Dear Lord, that is amazeballs.
Yeah,
We
should
have
buy them by
Tim.
the pallet.
We have Tim C. Taylor joining us.
Hey, Tim.
Matthew, for our co-host on the Galaxy's Edge podcast from Down Under. Of course, if I say that way too loud, he'll send a drone strike over to swat me down. So this morning, we wanted to have a little discussion about weapons. And we were going to do 5 things they get right and 5 things they butcher when it comes to portraying weapons in media. So how about it? Let's start with the negative, and we'll go to the positive. What's one of the things that you notice that they get wrong?
Bullets go through things. One of the things I see a lot of is, hiding behind the table or the couch, and no, that doesn't work. That's kind of one of my pet peeves is they're shooting around corners, and I don't know what houses most people live in, but the ones I know, it's plaster walls, bullets go right through that stuff. So do grenades and all that. And that's just one thing that gets me all the time. Ducking around the corner. Like, is that a concrete corner? So
Right.
That's probably one of my top 5 is bullets go through walls and chairs and stuff.
Do you ever have the fun of seeing how they travel along walls?
Yes. So if it's a concrete wall to block it, it's not a straight shot and bounce off. No, it travels like, what was it, 3 to 6 inches along the wall. So
and you see like all these movies where everybody's like, they got the guys in the stack and they're getting ready to breach that door, and everything's all exciting.
Yeah,
with the gun in the frame.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
And then
I can't watch TV for those reasons.
And then and everybody just starts taking incoming fire, but as long as they're against that wall, it's like, and then you sit in the briefings as a young private, and you're like, wait a minute, that's not true. You can actually get shot being against the wall,
or under a car. They're behind a car and their feet are there, and they don't realize that bullet comes down and it'll hit the pavement and then travel a distance.
Oh my goodness!
So it's like, I'm just going to stand behind this car, and they've got feet.
It's terrible.
Yeah,
let's see. I'll throw one in there. Let's see. Knives. I'm gonna go with knives because I'm a knife guy. I love bladed weapons. Mostly because the quote that's all over the internet, always carry a knife in case you need to cut a dude or in case there's cheesecake. I'm more the cheesecake guy. I don't want to cut a dude because it's messy. But like, you see in the movies, and like somebody gets tapped with that blade, and now they're ineffective. They can't move. The whole body has seized and stopped working. It's like, how many like articles and stuff like that do you see when you're either working in law enforcement, or if you've seen like a live actual stabbing, and or you're in the military, and there's a stabbing that happens because you're part of an LEO operation, and some dude comes out and he's like, dude, that guy just whacked me like 8 times, and he's got holes everywhere. You know what I mean? There's blood, there's wounds. He is obviously in pain and suffering some issues, but he's still mobile, still functional. You know, you're not dead just because the knife cut you.
You'll see these murderers. It's like he was stabbed 29 times. It's like, well, why? Wouldn't just one stab do the trick?
Not necessarily.
Yeah.
It depends on where he's getting hit.
Yeah.
So that's my my big thing as far as things go wrong. How about another one?
Everybody hitting. And just machine guns. You see Rambo, and he's got that machine gun. He sprays it, and every round hits somebody. And it's like, I like to take people to the range and put them in front of a target and just, 7 yards away, watch how frequently they miss everything. And when you look at statistics, and I think the statistics, and correct me if I'm wrong, but in a short range gunfight, 7 out of 10 rounds miss. I mean, you're standing there in full view of somebody aiming, 7 out of 10 rounds miss.
That's craziness.
When you start to stack that up, it just, no.
Yeah. Especially when you get things like adrenaline, because at the range, everything's nice and easy because the bullets are only going one way.
Yeah. Nobody's shooting at you. It's like, yeah, okay, it's easy. Yeah.
When it starts coming back the other way, you're like, this might be a little harder than I thought.
Yeah. Maybe I should hide behind something. And you start to concentrate more on, let's not get hit. It's like, no, we're not going to shoot at them. We're just going to avoid getting hit for the moment.
Absolutely. Yeah. Let's see. Another one. Because now we're on, that's 3, right? So we got 2 more.
Yeah, 2 each of us.
So let's see. I'm gonna go. I'm gonna stay on the bladed side. I'll let you handle the bullets. I'll go for the blades. Sword fighting. Sword fighting where they're smacking the edges of weapons back and forth against each other, and not actually aiming at targets on the body. It's like
edge on edge too.
Yeah. No bueno. The worst I think I've ever seen was what was it, the last Star Wars prequel, Revenge of the Sith. They that battle, it was like Battle of the Cheerleaders. They were just swinging to hit each other's weapons and not swinging to actually take out the target, which would have made it a much shorter fight. So yeah, that parry and dancing and you see this now with there's like a whole lightsaber culture springing up where it's like they're just whacking each other's weapons, and it's just no, that's not how that works.
I think they suspect that the sound is what kills, because the sound is so cool. That's got to be effective. The more it makes, the more, I don't know.
Right. Yeah. So yeah, just whacking each other weapon to weapon and hoping, eventually somebody will miss and get that shot. It's just, no, I can't. No. All right. So last one goes to you.
Reloading.
Oh God.
That's always the fun one. I mean, the video games make it easy. People gloss over it in books, but when the adrenaline is flowing and your micro skills, your small hand, just getting that magazine in there, getting the old one out. What do you do with the old one? Let it drop? That's not how training goes usually, but it's, you always run out when you need it. Your magazine always empties right at that critical moment. It never fails.
Yeah, and no matter how many times you're at the range and you're counting those rounds down, like we just said, bullets aren't coming the other way when you're on the range. Now in the Corps, when you guys were on mission, did you use a dump pouch for your magazines? Or okay,
we did. Mostly it was cargo pockets at that era. We didn't have dedicated jump pouches, but I mean, we lose the magazines, we pay for them.
Right.
So you're not just going to drop them and go. It's like, yeah, you're going to drop it and put it in your pocket and keep going.
Right.
Yeah,
I gotcha. What as far as like reloading, how about the round count when you see that in like books and video games and movies? Is that the
It sounds good to count the rounds and know, okay, yeah, I've got 30 rounds in here, but then once the rounds start flying, are you really going to be counting?
Oh no,
I
I meant
mean,
like you got a guy with an M4 and he's got a standard magazine in there,
oh yeah.
and he runs into one scene, he dumps, and then he runs into another
Mhm.
scene and dumps, and then runs into another scene and dumps, and then finally somebody comes up and goes, "Hey man, you need a mag?" And he goes, "I'm
Mhm.
good." And runs off
Yeah.
scene after just spraying like 300 rounds.
Hmm.
He
Or then they get to 300 rounds, and I don't know how many rounds they carried in the Army, but I know when I was in, I think we had the standard load was about 6 magazines. All right, and 30 rounds per magazine. That goes fast. That's what, 180 rounds. I was a little
especially if you're
fanatical.
suppressing.
I was a little fanatical, and I carried 6 extra mags. But it's like that goes so you go through that so fast. When the rounds are going down range, you just so quick. And it's just I find it amazing. And when people get it right, what I love to see is I'm reading the book and they say, okay, we're going to go in this room, everybody change your magazines because we were engaged. Let's go in with fresh magazines. It's like, that's okay, someone's paying attention, someone knows what they're talking about,
Right.
So magazines and video games make it so easy. It's
Oh
like it's
God.
an automatic function. So that's, I think, what people get in their mind is a lot of writers are also video game players. Say, okay, reloading's an automatic function, but real world people practice reloading. You go to the range and practice, but then if you're not at the range, you can still practice reloading magazines and stuff like that.
And you'd be surprised, like how, like even in the military, how reloading can be um, overlooked, and an
Mm-hmm.
overlooked skill, especially in units that aren't combat forward.
Mm-hmm.
Those combat support units, we were deploying to Iraq in 06, 07, and I had reclassified, so I was coming back, and I had to do a segment of a range fire back with my regular unit after reclassifying. So I get up on the range, and they're like, "Hey, can you safety for these couple of lanes?" Yeah, sure, no problem. So this sergeant seemed to have some difficulty. So I walk over to her and I'm like, can I help you out? And she's like, yeah, I don't have a lot of experience with the M9. And,
Mm-hmm.
some units are just rifle only. So, I mean, not a big deal. She was trying to put the magazine in backwards. And I'm like, am I being punked? Like, is somebody
Mm-hmm.
filming this? This can't be real.
Mm-hmm.
So just that alone, you just like, how
Yeah.
does this happen in the Army?
Yeah, you'll see all these videos too. They got the rounds in backwards in the magazine, and then there's this one picture guy holding it like right near his eye to aim. And it's like,
Oh,
that's not gonna work out too well, buddy.
you're
But
about to have an interesting experience.
yes.
All right, so we got 5 that they get wrong frequently. How about
Mhm.
5 they get right? Some of the
That's
things that,
harder
yeah,
because you never notice really when they get it right. Um, and again, it kind of goes to what's wrong. When they pull a Glock and it's like, okay, Glock, there's no safety. That's right. You can tell people have done their research when they give you details like that in writing. Revolver has 6 shots or 5 shots, and they make a note of that. But usually when they do it right, I usually don't notice. It's like, okay, yeah. But
one of the things I always enjoy is proper weapon management. So, yeah, like we were just saying a few minutes ago, I'm coming on the scene. I have my gun, because it's in the frame and you can see it, and now it's dramatic, and you're just sitting there and you're just like, oh my God, I want to just slap the white off your teeth. But instead, right, you get a scene where some of these news shows, like some of these military shows that are on, some of the police shows that are on, they're bringing on technical advisors who know what they're doing.
Mm-hmm.
And you got a guy with an M4 that's in patrol ready. You know,
Mm-hmm.
you got guys who are managing pistols who are not actually flagging each other, which when you see that in like,
Mm-hmm.
you know, like all the
Mm-hmm.
superhero movies and stuff like that, all these cops running out and sticking their guns on top of the hood and they're all
Mm-hmm.
aiming at each other. And it's like, what are you doing, dude?
Mm-hmm.
You know, but like having that good weapon management when you got a technical advisor on scene and you know, they're really handling that weapon well, I think that's another really positive thing to see on screen or read in a book where like especially if you got like military science fiction, they're talking about a stack or they're talking about moving
Mm-hmm.
to contact or whatever, and they specifically make a point of that good weapon management. That's cool stuff.
Mm-hmm.
How about give us another positive?
When their fingers off the trigger. That's whenever I look at a book cover or, you know, see something like that, it's like, okay, someone was paying attention. That finger is not on that trigger. You know, and I love seeing that. That tells me someone's paying attention.
Yeah.
Is that finger off the trigger.
Those 3 fundamentals of marksmanship, blah, blah, blah. Recently, I had the benefit of somebody coming to me and allowing me to read something before it was submitted. And they actually made a point to talk about a trooper who had a really rough night. And we've all, you know, if you've been green, you know, those like Thursday night good times, and then Friday morning comes around, you have that you know, group fun run that's going to purge all the toxins from your system before you go to work. But like he had the character in the story had that one of those nights, and then goes on mission and has a negligent discharge. And made a point of, you know, this was not his normal habit, blah blah blah, but you know, just stupid managed to get on the range, and that's what happened as a result. So good trigger management, yeah, oh hell yeah. Especially you're seeing that more and more now because those shows that are bringing on the technical advisors are becoming popular. So now people who might not be able to afford it at least know they need to keep their finger out of the trigger well. How about another good one?
That's a challenge. You know, because like I said, you know, if it's going right, it's going right. I think one of the things I do like to see is when they do suppressive fires. When they're saying, okay, I'll keep their head down while you go over there and get a better position.
Yes.
And that makes a lot of sense too, because, you know, it's not always you stand up, you shoot at them, they're down. Usually it's a firefights, a lot of moving to a better position so you could get a better shot. And sometimes you're going to endanger yourself. And if someone needs to stand up and make the enemy put their head down while you get to a better position, I mean, that's a great move right there.
Hell yeah. Thank God for the squad automatic weapon.
Oh yeah.
Because have you seen the articles coming out right now about the Marines looking to transition to the squad automatic rifle?
Yeah, I really question that. I mean, it's a heavier rifle, but it's not belt fed, and it's 30-round magazine, and I just don't understand that.
Now, on the Army side, have you seen the have you been following SHOT Show over the last week? So SIG is really pushing to try and get all of the big Army contracts right now, and they just scored the contract for the pistol. And so they're going to be replacing, phasing out the M9 and going for a SIG, which
I've seen that.
Yeah, the weapon also has a modular carbine configuration you can put it in. So if you needed to transition to something smaller and so you can move through buildings and whatnot or tight spaces. So they're really putting their best foot forward with that. And that kind of pushed them ahead in the consideration. The Army is looking to move away from the M2. So the big 50 caliber belt fed machine gun.
Yeah, I read something about that.
And SIG has this thing where they want to push forward a light machine gun to replace it. So it's not firing 50 cal. It's firing 338 Norma Magnum.
And they want to replace the 240 with that too, don't they?
Yes. So they'll phase out the 240, phase out the 50, and go right for the SIG light machine gun. And the benefit of this, for those out there who are not familiar with the M2, this thing was created in the 1920s, and it's unloaded. It's 50 pounds. That's not including the barrel.
Yeah.
So once you thread a barrel on there and then throw some ammunition on there, you're talking about a very heavy weapon system that can only be fired from vehicle or mounted into a tripod. So
but it's got that penetration.
And that's the thing. So SIG is using this new Norma Magnum round that will have comparable weapon effect, but at the same time, this new machine gun is only 20 pounds.
Sweet.
Yeah, right. So it's still the same weight as a 240 Bravo. So I was like, this is interesting. Check this bad
I'll have to see
out.
One of the interesting things I saw. Okay, one of the interesting things with 50 cal is that sound, that pop pop pop, is very intimidating.
Oh yeah.
And it's a lot more intimidating than a saw, an M249 saw, or something like that. So I think that plays a lot into armed combat as well, as you have that intimidation factor.
Right on.
The 50 cal firing on you is a lot more intimidating than an M249, even though a 249 might be faster.
Right.
So there are all sorts of aspects.
I think one of the last things we can point out, and you don't see it very often because in an age of modern combat where you see increasingly more firearms fights, proper blade handling. One of the worst blade scenes I've ever seen was that movie with Steven Seagal, Under Siege.
Is that the one where he's a SEAL on a battleship or something?
Yes.
Okay,
right?
I haven't seen that in eons.
Yeah, right. Yeah. It's an older film, but he pulls out. He's got a SOG Seal Pup, which is a pretty decent combat knife. It's not a sword or a machete. It's only got a 5-inch blade. But he pulls this out, and then the other character pulls out played by Tommy Lee Jones, pulls out a butcher's knife. Now they start going through their little kung pao chicken routine, and the blades are like slashing at each other like they're having a sword fight. And it's like, no, that range is way too close, way too fast. But there are some films and even books and stuff like that that are actually getting into talking about proper blade work, about how close it is, especially when you're dealing with a knife, how close and how dangerous it is to be that close. The wounds that can actually be caused. So I think that's cool too, that you can show that how gritty and nasty that
if they have knives.
If they have knives.
And I bring that up because this is something that kind of caught me by surprise. There's a audio book about a soldier in Fallujah, a staff sergeant, and in the house-to-house fighting, he got in the house. He didn't even have a knife on him, and it was going to close combat. And I'm like, I don't understand that. I had one of my nicknames in the Marine Corps is 9 Knives. I didn't really carry 9 knives, but I did carry a few. But it was going into combat without a battle knife, close at hand just strikes me as I don't understand it.
I mean, even if it's like any time after 2003, I can't picture any trooper who's got his boots in the dirt and working outside of an operation base or outside of an operation post or an outpost. I can't picture any trooper being out there without some sort of multi-tool.
Yeah.
So even if you grab that thing, turned it into a set of pliers, put it between your fingers and went for broke, I mean, even still something like that. And even if you had to, like, oh my God, I'm running low on ammo, pull out your transformer, pull out the little,
Yeah.
you know, the little knife, and I'm gonna, you know, I'm gonna try and shave you down. I mean, that's something at least. So, but yeah, there's been a couple of books I've read in the recent months where they've talked about like proper knife handling, like where to actually put it on your combat gear so it's accessible to you, not accessible to them.
One where it's like right on the.
Oh God. Yeah. Somebody grabs your web gear, pulls your blade, and stabs you with it. Yeah, that's no bueno. But like, they've talked about in some of the books I've read, having it accessible so where it's kind of under one of your it's either under a pouch or with the handle just exposed enough to where you can get to it, but it would be difficult for somebody else, or it's close to one of your limbs, but down in an angle where they can't pull it out in an easy fashion. That thing where it's sticking up here and you pull down. No,
right in the throat.
or my favorite is behind the belt.
Oh yeah,
on the back of the belt. You know, might be great if you're a hunter because the deer isn't going to sneak up onto you and be like, "For my family," you know. But I mean, having good knife handling skills and keeping it, especially in military science fiction or military fiction in general, but the thing you always see in a lot of these properties, you always see they always talk about big knives, like a fixed blade. You know, I last couple of deployments, I never carried a fixed blade. I always carried a like folder, you know, just because it was more practical. You know, and I knew I wasn't gonna, you know, try and carve somebody like a sandwich. I mean, that's I had firearms. I don't. And if I got into a situation where my knife was my last resort, I had bigger problems than, you know, going Rambo on somebody. So, you know, we talked 5 bad things that we really didn't like in media and fiction. We talked 5 good things that we really enjoyed in media and fiction. How about a book where you read that got a lot of it right? Doesn't have to be 100% great, but really kind of hit the highlights for you and made it work.
I think recently I reread a book, Hero by Joel Rosenberg, and that's like 80s, and that was pretty good because he really, you know, it's about Jewish mercenaries.
Ooh.
If you haven't read it, and it's dated now, but then they had good weapon handling when they went into a firefight. I mean, things were, you know, confusing. You didn't know what was going on. And then, you know, it didn't matter who you were, you could drop dead. And if you haven't read Joel Rosenberg, he was, I think, ahead of his time. But it's just, it's fun to read the way he does that. And then the one book, Hero, you know, they're talking about room clearing, you know, building clearing. They start at the top down. You always throw a grenade into the room first. And then, you know, that's a good theory. But then what happens when you run out of grenades?
Right.
So, and then he goes over this in the book. You know, it's like, okay, so he's clearing a building and they run out of grenades. So what does he do? He gets a dummy grenade. And if you're the guy in the room and you hear a grenade coming in and bouncing around, it's like, you're going to get out. You're not going, oh, let's wait for it to explode. No, we're gone. You know, it's just, he did a lot of things right there, you know, and I thought it was pretty cool because another thing is the main character. He was kind of a coward. You know, he could not aim at somebody and pull the trigger. He just couldn't pull that trigger. And not everybody can pull that trigger. You know, and that's just, to me, he hit a lot of high points there with the different aspects. And it's like, this guy's got to be a veteran. He had to have seen it.
Right on.
So
cool. We'll have to place that into the show notes so that people can enjoy. The one right behind me, right up on the shelf, Galaxy's Edge.
Yeah.
Oh my God. I was geeking out for days after I read that, after I read Legionnaire. I was like, who are these people and why are they writing great Star Wars that isn't Star Wars? And you know,
it's what Star Wars should have been, in my opinion. You know, I haven't seen the latest Star Wars movie, But I'd go watch Galaxy's Edge if they made a movie like 20, 30 times.
Oh my God.
I mean, that's what it should have been.
Well, something's coming. You didn't hear it from me.
That'd be cool.
Well, I really want to thank you for taking some time this morning. We ran a little long, but kind of geeking out on what we enjoy and what we'd like to smash to pieces. If people want to stalk you on the internet, where can they find you?
Well, usually Facebook. I'm always on Facebook. And then I have a website, williamsfrisbee.com. That's my author site. So those are probably the easiest ways to find me.
Nice.
Track me down.
Nice. So. Got anything about to drop that we can pimp?
Not really. So many different projects. I'm working on a collaboration with Kayleen Green's Luck and Hoorah, and that's going along quite well. Getting ready to start book 2.
I've seen some of the art. I was like, oh, that's great.
Yeah, it's pretty cool. I don't want to steal any of Kayleen's thunder, but it's it's good.
Right on. Well, I just want to thank everybody for sharing a little bit of our morning. You want to hold up that coffee shot again so that if people want to check that out.
Oh yeah.
So we got Forto coffee shot. If you
can't see the 200 milligrams down there, but there's.
If you want to vibrate through walls, this is what you should get. And then
I get a bulk.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah.
But we just want to thank everybody for sharing a little bit of their morning, sharing a little bit of their fiction and their reading, their writing, and a little bit more here on Keystroke Medium. Cheers.
Thank you. Bye.